People deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for watching and rocking each and every time. I'm at work, I'm on my travels, and I've managed to unusually find a quiet road in Oxford Circus. And when I say quiet, forgive me for any noise, people are going about their job, and obviously London's a tourist attraction. But in relation to Arsenal, people, now I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I no doubt you all do, and I probably do and whatnot. But if nothing more, it's just therapy. Now, Emre and Arsenal, how Arsenal have been recently, I don't need to go in depth. In short, it's just simply not good enough. We haven't been good enough. We don't look anything close to a side that looks like they can put a sequence of go on a winning run of 3 to 5 games, let alone show the consistency to get top 4. I told you lot, people, we need to get top 4 via what I believe is, for want of a better word, the legitimate means. 38 Premier League games, you show you're consistent enough to get there, because right now we need to get back into the Champions League. We need to be a consistent team against the bottom teams in the Premier League, let alone Champions League. But it don't matter if you're trying to stay in the division, win the Premier League, etc. If you can't be consistent and improve upon your weaknesses and show that you're learning from mistakes, you can't go on and do anything. So for me, if you can't show that you've learned, not just Emre but the team, if you show you haven't learned your mistakes from last season when we needed to win games, whether it was what you could say the crucial period from April to May where we just needed to win games no matter how much we choked, whether it was the beginning of the season, whatever stage we dropped points, the team should be looking at that, putting themselves back to that period a year ago and using that to fuel them this season. We haven't learned from our mistakes individually as players. Tactically, we haven't. I don't feel Emre has any real confidence in the team beyond what he might be telling them, because he doesn't play to their strong points. He doesn't allow the Aubameyangs, the Lacazettes, the Pepes. He doesn't give them creative license and freedom with the ammunition behind them to go out and excel in an attacking sense and almost go on an approach of, let's forget about our weaknesses, let's focus on what we're good at, sort of thing, in which other managers might. Obviously, in terms of our weaknesses, we don't look anything close to being solid as a team defensively. When Emre came into this job, away games and how we defend in many subsections of defending was how we meant to improve. He's failed to do that. Emre clearly doesn't trust these players, because on more than one occasion he'll go 5 at the back. He clearly knows we're frail defensively. He clearly knows he's unable to improve us defensively in terms of tactics and all of these things. Why do you think he plays 5 defenders at the back? And you've also, obviously, Xhaka has to play for different means, people. Xhaka has to be introduced. Let's move slightly. Xhaka has to play, people. But for one reason or another, you've got Torreira and 5 defenders. For me, that's going to give Southampton confidence, people. It would give Southampton confidence, because there's barely... Come on, if you're playing Arsenal and you struggle to score, Southampton struggle to score, they're playing at home and we're quite poor already, people. Obviously, they're gonna relish that. They're gonna look at Arsenal and think, yo, Arsenal are nervous. Arsenal aren't the Arsenal of whatever and whatnot. And we were there for the taking. And the players, it must feed off to the players, people. It must feed off to the players that Emre hasn't improved us defensively. We're just stockpiling players in the midfield or certain positions and hoping that it's a numbers game. Just because of the sheer numbers, we'll look a bit more solid. And as you know, football doesn't work like that, people. Football will never ever work like that. It will just simply never work like that. And also with the constant changes, for instance, the last 7 games, people, we've seen 7 different formations. People always talk about new players and all of these sort of things, but people always underestimate the need of coaching and how good players can get from playing together. What's that got to do for players' confidence if several players are playing out of position and you don't know what system you're playing from one week to another? Now, it's not like we've mastered one system and then we're trying to deviate and evolve. We're trying to do everything. And that's also, like, how are you meant to build any sort of repertoire, or any relationships on the field with your teammates? How's Pepe, Aubameyang, Lacazette meant to do this thing? How's the midfield meant to link? How are you meant to feel confident if the formation and everything is changing week in, week out? It doesn't do anything. And that means Emre, I would like to know, he would never tell us, but I'd like to know from Emre's point of view, why is this? Why are you still claiming balance and finding solutions? Why haven't you found this? Because Arsenal's been an open book. What are you doing wrong in terms of coaching us defensively? Because like Wenger, we don't look fractionally better. Some will argue we look worse defensively. So what are you doing in training defensively, or crucially, what aren't you doing in training? Systems, whether that's playing certain systems, whether that's defending outnumbered, whether it's defending from set pieces, we should be able to defend. That should have been the first thing Emre should have looked to improve, in how we just not even improving defensively necessarily, people, just how we as a team approach defending. Like you saw for the first goal against Aston Villa, everybody switching off. These sort of things, you would have thought they were the first things that need to be coached out of the game, but it hasn't. Emre doesn't believe in his players, and it's no excuse because last summer he was allowed to change up the team and whatnot. You even look at Mavropanos. Now, not to say Mavropanos should be in the team or not, but he told Mustafi can go. Mustafi's on the bench against Southampton. Mavropanos is playing against the 23, so he's been allowed to run the rule over his team, people. He's been allowed that, and there's not really much of a case to stand on, really, because Emre's had long enough. Like, he's really had long enough. And it's been 15 months, 15 to 18 months, however long mathematically it's been, people, and it's just poor. Like, it's just poor, and the excuses just aren't there. And I'd just like to know what it is, because you could see some consistency at Seville. He went for a 4-2-3-1 or a variation of a 4-3-3 frequently. But this Arsenal team, he consistently changes it. And why is that? Like, why is that? Like, Emre, why is that? I'd like to just genuinely people know why he keeps changing his lineups and he keeps going in the way he's going, because it's just not on. It's just simply not on. It's a joke, people. You've also seen allegedly David Moyes is returning to Everton and Arteta's being linked with Everton. So potentially, are Everton going to pip us to the signing of Arteta? You're seeing a whole lot of things, people. If Arteta is true, Pochettino's been linked again. Whether that will happen or not is a different thing. Personally, I can't see it. Allegri, I can't see it. I wouldn't mind Allegri, but he wants to probably win Champions League as a manager himself. Arsenal aren't anything close to that, so it doesn't make much sense, people, really and truly. I would just like to know why Emre is like this, because we should, if I was to, in an ideal world, not even an ideal world, if I was to criticise Emre, we should see some consistencies. Like, we should criticise his systems, but as much as we criticise him, we're criticising his consistency with his inconsistencies. He's consistently changing his lineups. He's consistently changing things in game. He's consistently talking about finding balance. Like, these excuses are wearing thin. So what is it? Are the players, have you lost faith in the players because you've obviously tried to communicate several things and they haven't taken it on? Why is it? And it's the philosophy as well which annoys me, because I don't mind 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back, whatever, as long as there's a philosophy. Where, for obvious reasons, I'm not comparing us to Manchester City, but it doesn't matter who Manchester, easy. I didn't, that scared me, people. This is why I don't like videos, essential, but you look at City, whether they play 3, 4, 5, whatever, their intention is to attack. I'm exaggerating a bit, but literally everyone can create a goal, from even Edison. We don't have that intent. Look how slow our build-up play is. So Emre, what don't you trust? Because you trust them to play out from the back, but it seems like when the centre halves receive it and give it to the midfielders, there's no plan. So what aren't we doing in training? Why hasn't this gone well for you? Like, I know the obvious reasons, but I'd love to hear from the manager's point of view. Like, clearly he doesn't trust these players defensively, so why have you not coached them to a point where they're able to defend? Because we've conceded 14, 15 league goals this season, and they've all been cheap. Which goals have really been quality goals, people? You could probably say Mo Salah away from home, where he skinned Luiz and Kolasinac or Monreal was in no man's land. I think it was Monreal, but even that, the left back's not in position. David Luiz sold himself diving in and whatnot, but there's just been too many cheap goals, people. And regardless of if we've won, lost or draw, we find ourselves saying the same thing. Like, it's truly a vote of no confidence for Emre, and you really have to look at the board now, because clearly the club is fractured from top to bottom. There's clearly players, I don't know any, but certain players probably believe in Emre. Some have questioned him from the start, some have probably turned on him. The boardroom the same. We know he retains allegedly Edu and Raul Sanye's support, which is all that matters, but apparently the Kroenke family, specifically Stan, and I don't know Josh, but this is off reports, are turning people. So if they're turning, what is it? Because the Arsenal, it is a difficult situation to look at it, because clearly some people at this club are looking at it from an extremely positive point of view, in that we got a new manager, we only missed out on a point from top 4, and we won. and we got to the Europa League final. We could potentially go one better. You heard after our defeat to Leicester that they were positive of a turnaround, and you saw from our game plan that we, in that game specifically, that there would be enough for Emre to turn it around. It doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. And this for me screams of no plan. We've got no plan. We've got no contingency plan if Emre was to leave, or if we get rid of him. We don't really have the balls to go and say, let's get rid of him. Because let's be honest, and I don't really care because Emre's not doing his job, but if we get rid of Emre and get another manager and it's the same nonsense, you know there'll be at least one person saying you should have kept Emre. Clubs are damned if you do, damned if you don't. Look at Spurs. Now, it might go terribly wrong with Jose Mourinho, but what would you rather? Would you rather try and attack your future and try and write your future for yourself, or would you rather react? Spurs have been proactive, similar to all Emre's done since he's been at this club. We've been nothing but reactive. We're reactive as a club, we're reactive on the football pitch, and that's my problem. Emre's reactiveness trickles down to the team. The team are not proactive in any thinking. The team, that's the base level for it, people. The team's thinking isn't there. We're not proactive off the ball. That's the one pet peeve for me. And Emre isn't the man for this role. Like, he isn't. He needs to go elsewhere. But I've got nothing more to say, so I'm going to keep it moving, man. On that note, people deluded, I'm out. Thank you for watching and rocking.